Most people's documents tend to be in A4 portrait orientation. That is to say that the short edge is across the top and the long edge down the side. If you want to have a landscape document, that is to turn the page through 90 degrees, you can say page layout and then choose orientation landscape, and that works, and you get the entire document into landscape. That, of course, may not be what you want. Most people tend to start with a portrait document on page 1 and maybe change to landscape in page 2 and back to portrait in page 3. It's often quite a mystery as to how this is achieved, and I'm going to solve that for you now. I'm going to do a Control and Home. That brings me to page 1. You can see I'm now on page 1 of 4, and I'm also going to put the document back the way it was, page layout, orientation, portrait. I put the cursor where I want the change in layout to happen, and I'm going to do a page layout breaks, next page break. That's not the same as a regular page break, it's a section break. It inserts a new section into the document. How can we see that we're in a different section? Well, first off, I'm going to turn the codes on so we can see it. There is a section break that we would see. If it was a page break, I'm going to put one in with a Control Enter. Page break is quite different from a section break. A page break simply puts the next piece of text onto a new page. A section break prepares the document that what follows may well be aligned differently. It even puts a little carriage return in there that I'm going to get rid of. I now put the page layout, orientation, landscape. If I want the orientation to go back to portrait at the end, I'm going to put page layout breaks, next page section break, and then I can go page layout, orientation, portrait. This is the section 3, section 2, section 1, all separated by section breaks. How do I know which section number I'm in? Well, it's not entirely obvious. If I right-click on the status bar here, I can actually include the section break. It's now appearing here. I'm in section 2. And here I'm in section 3. And at the top of the document, I'm in section 1. Portrait, landscape, portrait. Let's see how these changes in orientation between landscape and portrait affect headers and footers. I'm just going to do a Control Home to get to the beginning of the document and double click in my header. Now, our corporate standard recommends that we separate our headers into left, middle and right, so I'm going to do that now. L-E-F-T, tab, M-I-D-D-L-E, and then R-I-G-H-T, and that more or less splits it into 3 different sections. I'm going to copy that and paste it into the footer so that it's nicely balanced. Notice these tab keys are coming up as arrows because I've got the code still switched on, and those tabs are going to align on this ruler bar against that center tab and that right tab, and that center tab and right tab exist both in the header and in the footer. That looks kind of okay for section 1. I scroll down and have a look at our landscape page, and oh dear, it's not right at all, is it? It appears to have attempted to take the measurements from section 1, which is portrait, and use the same measurements in section 2, which is landscape, and it simply won't go. There are, of course, several different solutions to this header-footer problem. My preferred solution is this. We start with a clean document. I'm going to paste in some demonstration text in there and double-click into the header. and I'm going to put my header footer text inside a table. We say insert table, 3 columns and only 1 row. The standard table format that I've got on this template involves a blue row and blue lines. Just going to go design here, choose a plain table, and that will clean that up a bit. There we go. I then say left, middle, and Control E to center that, tab, right, and Control R to align that, and that looks quite nice. I'm going to copy that into the footer area to make that aligned as well, and choose my header here. The table now has to be set with a layout so that the auto fit will auto fit to the window being the width of the page. And I'm going to do the same thing to the footer. Design, layout, auto fit to the window, back into the document itself, page layout, breaks, next page break, tidy up those extra carriage returns there, roll it down so you can see what's going on, and then page layout, orientation, landscape. We still have a problem here with the header. That will be sorted out in a second. Double click in the header, and we go to the design of the header and footer and unlink it to the previous section. And there we have it. Go down to the bottom of the landscape page and again design, and link to previous is off, and that's rather nice. That's worked. I'm going to put a break in here and say page layout, breaks, next page, page layout, orientation, portrait. And we're going to have to do the same thing in reverse. Double click in the header, design, unlink it, go to the footer, design, and unlink it. Let's go through the document now. That looks correct. The landscape looks correct. The portrait looks correct. I think we've managed to do it. Or not quite. Have a look at the footer of section 1 here. Rather difficult to see completely out of context, but there's a bug in Word that makes you have a carriage return after a table. That doesn't normally bother anybody except when it's in a footer. If I highlight that carriage return and change its font size to 1 point, did you see how it moved down? That's a lot better. We were wasting a lot of space. It's supposed to be at the bottom of the footer here. I'll just undo that so you can see it. Undone and redone. You can see that the alignment is much better with that fake carriage return set to the smallest size possible. Another thing that isn't quite right, I'm going to have to show you by changing the view so it's a little bigger. View, zoom, 100%, OK. If you look very carefully at where the text inside the table is lined up, it's not the same as the left-hand side of the margin. This is by design of Microsoft, though it's rather irritating. Double click into the header, select the table, right click, table properties, options, and can you see there's a left and a right margin in the table of 0.19 of a centimetre. That's that space there and that space there, slightly obscured by that funny little code. But if we take off the same as whole table, change that to a 0 and that one also to a 0 and OK and OK, we should see that it's slightly more satisfying to the pedantic eye. So there you have it. Rather a lot in this video, I'm afraid. Headers, footers, landscape, portrait and a bit of alignment thrown in for fun. In the next video we'll look about page numbering that makes this one look easy. Hope to see you then.